This big man was on a difficult mission. He was collecting debts from a gang boss. Obviously, this was too much for a normal person because he had to deal with these thugs to get the money. But this man was an exception. He had extraordinary strength and was skilled in fighting. So it didn't take long for these thugs to be completely defeated by him. He was Tae-san, who had been a loan shark for hundreds of years. But the strange thing was that only everyone around him had aged, while he remained the same. Before that, Tae-san had visited a prisoner named Jang-soo, who was the debtor that Tae-san had struggled to find. Jang-soo looked at the strange man in front of him and asked if they knew each other. Tae-san calmly introduced himself as his creditor. Hearing that, Jang-soo couldn't help but laugh in surprise. He couldn't believe that he was in prison and still had his debt collected. Jang-soo also did not forget to praise the dedication of boss Tae-san. However, Tae-san did not care much about the compliment. He went straight to the point by putting a piece of paper and a pen on the table. The creditor forced him to pay 2 billion, of which 1 billion was interest. Jang-soo burst out laughing. He affirmed that he would pay the debt when he got out of prison, or he could destroy the loan shark Angel Group. Facing that challenging tone, Tae-san still did not waver. Tae-san looked straight at Jang-soo and explained that his group only lent money to gangsters and scum. Before leaving, Tae-san warned that in the past 100 years, he had never failed to collect a single debt. Hearing that, Jang-soo could not help but be surprised that in the past 100 years, Tae-san had not aged. Not long after, Tae-san took out his phone and ordered Jang-soo to be bailed out of prison. But as soon as Tae-san left the prison, the Maroc police called. It turned out that Maroc called because he wanted to borrow money from Tae-san. Maroc complained about how he didn't make much money as a police officer. Because they were close friends, Tae-san said he would transfer the money to Maroc soon. Although the policeman complained about his suffering, Maroc was holding luxury items in his hands. It turned out that Maroc just wanted to buy a gift for his sister, Mir. Mir was working as a tour guide at a museum. Mir was talking about the birth of the 12 zodiac animals, symbolizing the power of the 12 gods. Maroc, who was on this side, witnessed the scene and smiled slightly. Then Maroc brought her his gifts, but Mir just gently refused because she knew that it was big brother Tae-san's money. Immediately after that, Maroc went straight to the point, asking Mir when she would return to the group. Because Mir had left everyone for 10 years without a reason, but Mir just kept quiet and used the excuse of being busy to leave, regardless of how Maroc called her. At this time, Maroc could only sigh helplessly. Maroc could not help but wonder what Mir had dreamed of that made him leave everyone. At the same time, at the Oriental Medicine Clinic, although it was a clinic service on the outside, it actually did all kinds of business, including a loan sharking service run by the Angel Group. Donnie was a big man with a kind face. Donnie was typing on the keyboard, creating advertisements for a clinic that could cure all diseases. Although the advertisement reeked of fraud, many people still believed in it and came to get treatment. In the therapy room, a blood-curdling scream echoed as Dr. Bang Wool, petite woman with hands of steel, performed a chiropractic neck adjustment that sent the patient to the afterlife. The people waiting outside were scared pale and secretly ran away when they saw this. But what they did not expect was that the previous patient was actually cured, and he also felt unusually refreshed. The customer then thanked him profusely and promised to introduce his relatives to come for examination. Before the customer left, Donnie did not forget to remind customer to abstain from greasy foods and especially avoid eating pork, because pigs are extremely adorable animals to him. In another development, a group of people from the Angel Group were preparing to go collect debts. Won Sung, a smart young man, volunteered to go first. The two girls Mon-suk and Ji-dul were ready to act. Immediately after that, Won Sung jumped onto the railing. He carefully observed the surroundings and saw the target. Their target was the gambling boss, who was hiding in his den. According to rumors, even if the group's debtors fled abroad, they would be dragged back. In response to those rumors, the debtor had sent people to guard carefully. Won Sung thought he was the pioneer, but before he could act, Mon-suk and Ji-dul had already settled the matter. They took advantage of the moment when the gamblers were arguing and fighting. Man-suk moved like a gust of wind, taking down the guards with absolute strength. Then the three of them coldly entered the enemy's lair, while his underling Ji-dul was responsible for monitoring the security system. At this time, the casino boss quickly realized that the situation was unstable, so he quickly gathered valuables to escape. Although the debtor had a large number of subordinates, they were no match for these three people. Each subordinate was easily taken down by the angels. Just when the debtor thought he had escaped, he accidentally bumped into Donnie's fat belly. Just when the debtor was about to fight back, Mansa kicked him in the jaw. The boss only had time to scream once and then passed out. So their debt collection mission was completed. On this side, after being released from prison, Jiangsu held a celebration party in his lair. Jiangsu bragged to his juniors about his mysterious bailout, thinking he was lucky to have great fortune. Unexpectedly, at that moment, Jiangsu's phone rang. It was Taesan calling and informing him that he was Jiangsu's guarantor. Jiangsu laughed and hung up. Immediately after that, Jiangsu ordered his men to prepare for battle to fight the creditors. But Jiangsu didn't know that Taesan was not an ordinary creditor. When Taesan arrived at Jiangsu's territory, he didn't even bother to bring a weapon. He was ready to fight with his bare hands. When the thugs rushed forward like a pack of hungry wolves, Taesan's fists punched them straight in the face. Then one by one they stepped forward to attack, but none of them could block Taesan's punches. Even though they had baseball bats in their hands, with Taesan's quick defense and decisive attacks, they could only tremble in fear and endure the blows. In just a few minutes, dozens of them had collapsed on the ground. Jiangsu also witnessed the scene and couldn't help but be terrified. Knowing that he couldn't defeat Taesan, Jiangsu opened the safe and planned to run away with the money. Unexpectedly, Taesan rushed into the room. Seeing that, Jiangsu clenched his hands and took a deep breath. But it turned out that he was just trying to stay calm to return all his assets to Taesan. Even so, Taesan was still very cold. He walked over and waved his hand towards Jiangsu. But Taesan was just scratching his head because he was itching. When all the assets, including the watch, were taken away, Jiangsu could only reluctantly sign the debt repayment paper. But that amount of assets was still not enough to pay. So Taesan took the car. The group of people who were still arrogant just now had to bow down to apologize to the creditor. It seemed that no one could escape debt from the angel group, because this group was inherently full of extraordinary people. To better understand the birth of the angel group, we must look back thousands of years. At that time, the world was still immersed in darkness, but a new energy was born, which was light. Light created living substances. They filled the dark space that was just a wasteland. Finally, the god of light sent 12 zodiac animals, representing the power of the 12 gods, to the earth so that they could together create a harmonious world. From then on, people worshipped the god of light as the creator. Thanks to that, the world quickly prospered at a dizzying speed. But when the realm of light expanded, the realm of darkness gradually narrowed. The darkness did not accept, so they immediately created demons to start fighting for territory. But with the power and mission given by the god of light, the 12 angels were willing to engage in countless fierce battles to protect humanity. In the end, with a noble sacrifice, the angels defeated the demons. There were angels who sacrificed their lives and powers to seal the evil power. From there, the peaceful world of the planet was re-established. Later, the remaining gods chose to live in harmony in human form. But to survive, they also had to earn a living like everyone else. That's why the Taesan Oriental Medicine Clinic, also known as the Angel Group, was born. Returning to the present, after finishing work, Taesan did not go home immediately, but drove to a sidewalk restaurant. This was where the white-haired old lady Jum Soon was busy setting up her stall. Seeing Taesan, the old lady happily hugged him, expressing her joy at seeing him again. Here, the usually cold Taesan was unusually warm, and old lady Jum Soon was also the only one who knew that Taesan was the tiger god. She remembered decades ago, when she was a little girl. Gum Soon's family was bullied by thugs, and Taesan himself appeared as a guardian deity for the entire market. When Gum Soon saw Taesan's somewhat overweight appearance, she advised him to lose weight. But Taesan only replied that he had been practicing for 5,000 years without success. At the same time, he expressed that he had lived too long and was gradually becoming weak. Hearing that, the old lady immediately reminded him to live a long time to protect good people. But Taesan only replied that he had given up protecting people a long time ago. Hearing that, the old lady sympathized with Taesan because she knew that people often lived very selfishly and ungratefully. But Gum soon believed that there were still truly good people who needed Taesan's protection. Finally, the old lady advised Taesan to find his own happiness. Seeing that, Taesan smiled slightly and pinched her cheek teasingly. Before leaving, he wanted to give the old lady some money, but Gum soon refused. A nearby old man thought Taesan had come to cause trouble, so he angrily hit Taesan with an umbrella. He did not forget to scold Taesan for his rude attitude towards the old lady. At this moment, Taesan suddenly recognized the old man as the boy Manbok, who used to wet the bed when he was young. Manbok also recognized Uncle Taesan after a while. Meanwhile, the old man could not help but hug Taesan happily. The old man wondered why Uncle Taesan still looked so young. At the same time, at the office, a news bulletin attracted the attention of the Morak police. At a redevelopment site, archaeologists discovered a large number of relics from the Stone Age under the sediment lake. However, the strange thing was that they found minerals with shapes and structures that were difficult to determine their age. They emitted unusual energy fluctuations that machines could not measure. Therefore, this discovery attracted great attention from the academic world. In the face of that mystery, deep in a deserted cave, a group of people in black robes were performing an ancient ritual. When they saw that phenomenon, the subordinates immediately returned to the area to report to the leader that they had found Ogui. On this side, Taesan had returned to the large villa. In his hand, Taesan carried a bag of food bought from the old lady Gumsoon's shop. The house was empty because Taesan's juniors had not returned yet. Taesan placed the food on the table and walked to a hidden wall. As soon as Taesan placed his hand on it, a secret room was revealed. Inside was a huge fortune that Taesan's descendants could not use up for 3 generations. In the dark cave, the final ritual began. All the black-robed followers gathered. His eyes were red like burning coals, and behind his back were giant black wings. It was the reincarnated demon, Ogui. On this side, Taesan pondered over Gumsoon's words. Taesan's memories gradually flooded back, revealing the reason why he no longer wanted to protect humans. At that time, the gods had taken on human forms to integrate. Everything was fine until the day Taesan and Mir went for a walk around the market. The two of them came across a thug bullying the villagers. The thug not only trampled on the villagers, but also tried to kidnap innocent girls to be his concubines. Seeing the disgusting scene, Taesan told Mir to stand still, while Taesan would punish the beasts. With just a few basic punches, Taesan terrified the thugs. When he saw the two thugs trying to sneak attack Taesan, Mir, who was standing far away, promptly used her ability to stop them. The scene made the villagers gasp in amazement. They did not understand why the girl's hand could create such a terrible wind. The leader of the thugs was so scared, he immediately knelt down to beg for forgiveness and promised never to cause trouble again. After that incident, the villagers brought delicious food and wine to Taesan's mansion to thank him. They said it was just a little bit of sincerity, hoping the leader would accept it. However, right after eating and drinking, the whole group passed out. When Taesan woke up, he was extremely panicked because outside, the villagers had lit a fire to burn Mir alive. It turned out that when they saw the girl using her bare hands to throw away the thugs, they thought Mir was a witch. The villagers gossiped that Mir was a demon who had come down to Earth to bewitch and kill the villagers. So they put drugs in the wine to secretly eliminate their benefactor. Those ungrateful people didn't hesitate to curse, then heartlessly set fire. Luckily, Taesan rushed in time. He pulled out the stake, causing the villagers to run away in fear. At that moment, Taesan understood human nature. For thousands of years, they had always been willing to turn their backs on betrayal and repay favors with violence. That was why Taesan didn't want to interfere in the human world anymore. But right now, Taesan's heart was still filled with confusion. Taesan didn't know whether he should continue to shoulder the mission of an angel or not. In the cave, the evil ritual had succeeded. The demon Ogui with giant wings terrified everyone present. The cult leader Samin was very happy at this time. He boasted that he had been searching for Ogui for thousands of years. He had exhausted his strength to awaken the god of darkness. Immediately after that, Samin wanted to borrow Ogui's power to confront the 12. But Ogui immediately grabbed the arrogant man by the neck. He let Samin know who was the real master here. The next day, life continued as if the world had no darkness lurking. Doni, Mansuk and Kanji went out for a morning jog, but in reality, only 2 girls maintained their running pace. Doni soon gave up because of fatigue. The 2 girls saw that and could only continue running. Meanwhile, Mansuk reminded Kanji to leave the stone bracelet at home because it would be very cumbersome when running. Moreover, the sealed demon was no longer dangerous. But Kanji denied it. She thought she had been attached to it for too long. The stone bracelet was like a talisman, a sign of good luck. luck, so she couldn't leave. On this side, Doni had prepared a sumptuous meal for himself, and he didn't forget to check his horoscope for today. His horoscope showed that today was an unlucky day, and he was likely to cause conflict with others. As soon as Doni finished speaking, he saw an omen coming, a dog barking loudly at Doni. Because he had the ability to understand animal thoughts, he knew it was cursing him as a pig. Too angry, Doni stood up, intending to teach the puppy a lesson. The dog's owner was busy wearing headphones, so he didn't understand what was happening. Luckily, Doni's teammates came to the rescue in time, otherwise the dog would have been in trouble. Doni was a big eater, but as soon as someone criticized his appearance, he immediately became angry. As for the demon Ogui, he had already begun to act. Ogui quietly observed the human community in modern times. On the road, Ogui and Mir accidentally passed each other, but in a flash, they disappeared into the crowd. Old memories resurfaced. Thousands of years ago, Ogui had faced off against the 12 angels in a battle for survival. Only when the gods sacrificed their own power did they successfully seal Ogui. Ogui's sin was to oppose God and plot to destroy the world. Therefore, Ogui was imprisoned forever behind the gates of hell. On this side, the 12 were happily eating and drinking. Only the leader Taesan and Mir were absent. They seemed to have completely integrated into human form, from their lifestyle to their thoughts. The girl Bangwol excitedly showed off that she had just made a citizen identification card. Her expression clearly warned that anyone who dared to criticize the bad ID photo would be poisoned by Bangwol. Immediately after that, they took out the photos taken in ancient times to admire, reminisce, and tease each other. As for Mir, instead of partying with her teammates, she sat alone at the bar. The haunting dream of a faceless man in a dark cave was still weighing on her mind. In her dream, Mir only saw his back, but the creepy feeling made her suffocate with fear. While she was drinking, a young man came to try to seduce Mir. However, no matter how much he flirted, Mir still didn't respond. Not stopping there, another man continued to harass Mir. At this time, Mir was annoyed and stood up to leave. She also conveniently gave a few blows to the two lecherous men. In another place, Ogui was sitting on a high railing, looking at the modern world. It had only been sealed for 1,000 years, but humanity had developed beyond Ogui's imagination. Ogwin turned to ask Salmon what he had done all this time. At the same time, he blamed Salmon for letting the world prosper like this. Salmon confessed that, since the gates of hell closed, he had lost all his power. For all those years, Salmon lived in seclusion with the sole purpose of finding Ogui, because only Ogui had the ability to fight against the angels and turn the world into hell. Finally, Salmon used all kinds of seductive words and promised a way to upgrade Ogui's power. Salmon said that Ogui could feel Haetae's energy. Salmon had witnessed the day Haetae died and the gates of hell closed. At that time, Haetae left behind 3 soul stones. When all 3 were collected and the energy was transferred to the dragon soul, the object would monitor the energy between the angel and the devil. At that time, Ogui would be able to revive Haetae's demonic power. Of course, Salmon was a cunning old fox. He only cared about immortality for himself. Although Ogui still nodded in agreement to cooperate, he coldly warned that if Salmon dared to betray him, Salmon's head would leave his body. After saying that, Ogui spread his wings and disappeared into the night. The next morning, the 12 group went out to eat fried chicken. Leader Taesan was absent because he was busy collecting a debt from a car shop owner. Although he was a creditor, Taesan was quite kind and compassionate, so he left the debtors a stack of pocket money. If the debtors had listened to Taesan, he wouldn't have beaten them up. After finishing, Taesan got in the car to take some medicine, but he realized that he didn't have any pills left. Taesan had no choice but to call the doctor to make an appointment and ask for more medicine. Recently, Taesan had been having chest pain and difficulty breathing, and his health was declining abnormally. The treatment didn't seem to have any effect on Taesan. Meanwhile, the doctor was still boasting about his abilities. Wanting to be left alone, Taesan could only angrily stuff the stack of money into the doctor's pocket so he wouldn't have to listen to him. Now, all Taesan needed was a peaceful sleep and more medicine to hold on. Meanwhile, at the lair, the villains are plotting to eliminate Ogui. At first, they woke him up to use his power against the angels. However, Ogui is not easy to manipulate. He even threatened to tear Salmon to pieces if he dared to act. However, Ogui is the only one who can find the 3 powerful stones. If the gates of hell are not opened, the villains will slowly die. Samin immediately ordered a change of plan. Salmon transferred dark energy to his followers, causing their eyes to change. Immediately after that, they left the lair. At the same time, the necklaces of the Marak police and all the angels simultaneously glowed. It was a sign that the evil spirits were rising after thousands of years of slumber. Everyone was confused, because now their divine power had been sealed with the devil. What would they use to confront the devil? Because the situation was unstable, the members hurriedly called Taesan, but Taesan did not answer the phone. The emergency situation forced everyone to divide the work to act. act. In another development, Samin continued to drop blood into the bowl of water and monitor everything through the magic prism. At the same time, the Morocco police tried to contact Mir but failed. At this time, Mir was meeting with his colleagues at the museum. When Mir finished work, he was about to take his car home when he sensed someone was following him. The whole incident was within Samin's field of view through the magic bowl of water. The two opposing sides immediately engaged in fierce combat. The evil spirits were like puppets controlled by a huge source of power. They became warlike and tireless. In contrast to the 12, they had lost all their powers and were now just mortals. No matter how strong their martial arts were, they were no match for the demons. One by one, they were cornered and covered in injuries, but the members still tried to brace themselves against them. Meanwhile, the leader Tae-san returned to the office, but he did not see his teammates. When Tae-san saw the glowing stone, he immediately understood that the demons had risen. In the garage, the battle between the two sides was still undecided. Man-suk, who usually had the best martial arts, was now crushed by the opponent. The whole group was almost exhausted, and perhaps the group would not be able to hold on any longer. It was clear that the main target of the villains was Mir. Everyone saw that, so they tried their best to stop him, even though they themselves were not yet finished. Meanwhile, Bangwoo had also arrived at Tae-san's place in time. The two of them were now filled with worry for their teammates. On the other side, Ogwi stood on the rooftop, his eyes suddenly turning red. Ogwi also seemed to have sensed the rise of the devil. As for the 12, they were gradually running out of strength. Fortunately, the Morocco police arrived in time. Morocco pulled out his powerful staff and beat the cultists to a pulp. Realizing that the situation was not good, Morocco asked everyone to leave as soon as possible. After saying that, he immediately cast a spell that made the cultists stand still. Taking this opportunity, the 12 groups supported each other to retreat. In another development, Ogwi stood on the rooftop. Even though he was 10 kilometers away, Ogwi could still clearly see everything that was happening in the car basement. Ogwi muttered that it had been a long time since he had seen his old acquaintances. Meanwhile, leader Samin knew that his followers were being restrained in their power, so he used the spirit possession technique to unseal them. Due to carelessness, Morocco was suddenly attacked by Samin. Because of that, the entire cult was quickly unsealed. When Morocco was about to be strangled to death, Wonsun quickly attacked to save him. Immediately after that, Morocco stabbed his staff and used his strength to counterattack, but Samin used his summoning magic to take his subordinates away. Just before the subordinates' aura had completely dissipated, Morocco was able to touch it and feel the source of evil power. What surprised Morocco was that the evil cult was all controlled by Samin himself. The juniors in the group began to panic, wondering if the old demons had really been reborn. All members clearly felt the familiar evil aura. Morocco was afraid that everyone would worry, so he reassured everyone that he would continue to investigate further. Morocco advised the group to temporarily go home to bandage their wounds and rest. As for Tae-san, he was angry because he could not contact his juniors. When Tae-san witnessed his teammates being injured, he could not help but feel hurt and angry. Then Morocco called Tae-san to a private room to discuss the matter. Bangwoo is a traditional Chinese medicine doctor. She specializes in collecting precious herbs for treatment. This time Bangwoo can bring them out to help her teammates. Mir, when doing an ultrasound on her wrist, found no problems, so she asked permission to go out first. Meanwhile, the white-haired young man Ji-dul took the opportunity to go into the medicine warehouse to explore. When Ji-dul went around, he got some delicious dried herbs. Ji-dul intended to bring them back to use as bait for drinking wine. Unexpectedly, when he put them in his mouth, Ji-dul was poisoned and foamed at the mouth. In another corner, the big-bellied Doni was receiving treatment with steam, but because he was so fat, Doni blew out a glass of water with one breath. At the same time, Wonsun was equally mischievous. Out of curiosity, he twisted the massage machine and got an electric shock, causing his face to distort. In front of such mischievous patients, Dr. Bangwoo was helpless. Just then, Tae-san and Morocco appeared to ask about everyone's situation, but their minds were now wondering where the evil cults came from. forum. The group all knew that when the gates of hell closed, all the power between darkness and light was sealed. But now in the form of ordinary people, they would definitely die if they fought the released demons. Although everyone was confused, they were still determined to protect humanity. Tae-san alone still remembered the old grudge. Tae-san thought that humans were selfish and not worth protecting. That's why Tae-san didn't want to protect humanity anymore. He just wanted to keep his members safe. Hearing that, Kanji immediately objected and advised the leader to change his mind. The group argued about the mission to protect humanity. At this time, Maroke spoke up to ease the atmosphere. Maroke invited Won-sung to a drinking place to chat because he felt that the conversation just now was too tense. Everyone understood that Tae-san was not someone who easily hated humans. Kanji is the one who has the most affection for humanity, so she wants to protect them. Maroke cleverly commented that Tae-san is actually cold on the outside, warm on the inside. Tae-san also wants to find out about the reincarnation of the evil spirit, but is afraid to speak up. Therefore, according to Maroke, Won-sung is completely capable of inheriting Tae-san's position. Taking this opportunity, Won-sung should represent Tae-san to find out about the reincarnation of the evil spirit. At the same time, Tae-san, the tiger god, quietly opened the secret door. This place used to be the graveyard of angels. The group of gods originally had 12 people, but after a life-and-death battle, they sacrificed 4 members. At that time, Maroke used his staff to petrify his teammates so that their bodies would remain intact. Everyone was heartbroken by that loss, especially the leader of the tiger god, Tae-san. Tae-san blamed himself for being the leader, but not being able to protect the members. That's why at the moment, Tae-san doesn't want to lose any more teammates. Suddenly, Maroke appears from somewhere. He comes and reveals that the one who awakened the demon is Samin. Maroke reminds Tae-san that angels are born to protect humans. However, no matter how Maroke advises, Tae-san is stubborn and refuses to listen. Tae-san refuses to save humanity and only wants to keep the 12 safe. Although he says so, Tae-san still cares about humans. Tae-san brings a large sum of money to the sidewalk shop to buy back the stall, and at the same time warns the old couple to leave because there will be danger soon. On the other hand, Mir agrees to return home to support his teammates. The next morning, Kanji is jogging but still thinking about arguing with his big brother Tae-san. Kanji hopes that Tae-san will be the one to protect the younger siblings, and they themselves will go help humans. Meanwhile, Won-sung carries the demon detector and wanders everywhere. When Won-sung pressed the switch, the surrounding area turned green. If an abnormality was detected, an orange dot would appear on the screen. Won-sung lied to Ji-dul that he had to participate in breaking up a drug trafficking ring, but in reality, Won-sung was wandering around the forest looking for traces of the devil. However, Won-sung walked for a while and still did not see any orange dots appear. As for Dr. Bang-woo, she was free at home so she practiced archery, but Bang-woo used Doni as a shield, which scared Doni so much that he almost peed his pants. Fortunately, Bang-woo was good at shooting, otherwise Doni could have turned into a sausage skewer. Meanwhile, the Morok police arrived at the National Research Institute, where they had just reported a theft. Among the newly excavated artifacts, the institute discovered that they had just lost a black stone. Nothing else was stolen. At this moment, Won-sung called to complain. Won-sung said that he had been wandering in the forest all day, but still could not find the evil spirit. Maroke immediately encouraged his juniors, reminding them that this place was the place where the evil spirit first appeared in the past. Maroke also persuaded Won-sung that if he wanted to succeed Tae-san as leader, he would have to work hard. Hearing this, Won-sung temporarily felt relieved and continued his mission. The two kept this a secret and did not tell any other members of the 12 group. Meanwhile, the old couple Gum-soon were bringing the money and plane tickets to return to Tae-san. They were determined that no matter how dangerous it was, they did not want to leave behind the street stall that they had been attached to all their lives. Old lady Jim soon began to recall what happened more than 15 years ago. At that time, a group of thugs often bullied the small traders in the market. They forced everyone to clear their land to occupy it. When they failed to persuade them, they turned to violent measures and destroyed everything. At that time, the 12 group knew about the matter and asked their big brother Tae-san to take action to deal with the trouble. At first, Tae-san did not want to help humans, but in the end, he still acted according to his temperament. With just a few basic punches, Tae-san quickly beat the hooligans to a pulp. Jim-soon's family looked at Tae-san with gratitude. Under the halo, Tae-san appeared like a god. Because the sidewalk stall was the property left by his mother, Jim-soon absolutely did not want to throw it away. She always hoped that Tae-san would continue to protect humans like he did that year. At the same time, the sisters invited Mir to the orphanage to do charity work. Mir apologized for living separately and not being with everyone in the past. Suddenly, Mir saw an illusion of his comrades being seriously injured, which was a sign of something bad. On the rooftop, Og Ogui was holding the black stone he had just stolen from the museum. Now that Ogui had a stone in his hand, he only needed to add the last two to gain ultimate power. Speaking of the stones, we must also tell the origin of Haetae. Thousands of years ago, Haetae was just a kid who followed the tiger god all day long. Taesan felt uncomfortable at that time because he did not know who he was. Marok explained that the kid was created by God. He had the same characteristics and powers as the 12 angels because he resembled the tiger god the most. Haetae often followed him. Later, the boy would take on the responsibility of protecting the world like the other angels. At first, Taesan felt uncomfortable, but gradually he developed close feelings for Haetae. As the years passed, the kid grew up and saw Taesan as his big brother. The tiger god always reminded his juniors to remember that their existence was to protect humans. The two of them fought side by side, and together they went through countless fierce battles. Back to the present, the 12s gathered at the communal house. Dangwoo had used Doni as a target all day. The others had also returned after a long day of volunteering at the orphanage. Won-sung had also returned after wandering around the forest, looking for traces of the demon. The group enjoyed the fragrant fried chicken and celebrated Mir's reunion. It had been a long time since the 12s had been this lively. Jidol shared this month's bonus with his teammates. Because they had long lifespans, they still needed money to live like humans. Won-sung did not forget to brag that anyone who needed help in the future could contact him directly, implying that he had thought about the prospect of replacing Taesan as leader. Since the demons had not been bothering them recently, everyone felt somewhat more at ease. Suddenly, the Marok police visited, wanting to talk to Taesan privately. At this time, Taesan was already drunk. Taesan often has nightmares about the world collapsing once again. Every time he wakes up, Taesan still can't escape the feeling of shock and fear. Immediately after that, Marok shows Taesan a video clip extracted from the National Museum's camera. It shows that Ogui broke in and stole the black stone. As soon as he touched the spirit stone, Ogui's heart immediately glowed, proving that Ogui and the stone have a mysterious connection of power. They guessed that it was Samin who woke Ogui up and urged him to take the stone. The immediate task is to prevent Mir from contacting and falling into their hands. Besides, the group must quickly find the cult's hideout because it's better to take the initiative than to sit still and wait for death. In another development, Samin with an old face is absent-mindedly recalling the day Haetae was destroyed by the tiger god. At that time, he was physically and mentally disabled with barely a breath. While lying motionless, he saw the 3 stones that Haetae left behind. Ogui appeared and teased Samin that he had never smiled in his life. Samin's ugly face was always grimacing and not at all interesting. Ogui thought that if Samin smiled, he would probably speed up the collection of the 3 spirit stones. In the afternoon, the two went up to the rooftop to enjoy the breeze. When the black crows flew, Ogui used his red eyes that could see thousands of miles to search for the location of the spirit stones. The next morning at the scrapyard, a worker accidentally unearthed a glowing stone. Before he could take a closer look, the cult had already appeared. Coincidentally, Won-sung was wandering near that area, so when the device screen displayed the signal, he immediately ran following the map. Meanwhile, Man-suk and Mir were fighting hand to hand. Mir raised his hand and created a powerful force that sent his opponent flying. Man-suk was surprised that all his teammates had lost their powers, but Mir still had magic. Man-suk couldn't help but admire the power of the dragon god. Thanks to that, Man-suk also felt more secure. At least, there was someone in the group who still had divine power. After the match, the two went out for ice cream to relax. Man-suk thought that if Marok the police accompanied them, they wouldn't have to worry about demons. However, in fact, Marok was just a normal human. He only held a powerful staff. The last time he confronted the evil group, Marek had used up a lot of energy. Currently, the 12 group still doesn't know the origin of the demons and their true scale. Man-suk was curious to know the dream that made Mir leave her teammates and live separately. Mir just kept silent. She didn't seem ready to reveal it. In another development, Doni and Bang-wul became a close couple at the Oriental Medicine Clinic. Bang-wul had prepared a type of herb that temporarily increased strength to deal with demons. However, when the medicine wears off, their bodies will suffer terrible pain. Doni was hesitant at first, but because the medicine smelled so good, he put it in his pocket. At the same time, Marok made an appointment for the group to meet tonight to report the situation. At the meeting, Marok revealed that it was Samin who woke Ogui up. Although it is still unclear what Samin's true intentions were, Taesan then called Mir into the room to talk. Taesan wanted to know if she had met anyone strange recently, because the cult attack a few days ago showed that the target was clearly Mir. To ensure safety, Taesan decided to investigate the villain's plot himself. At the same time, he did not forget to tell Mir to stay home with everyone for the time being. Mir shivered slightly when she remembered the nightmare that had haunted her all this time. In her dream, she saw herself entering entering a cave. She stood in front of a villain who exuded a terrifying aura. Meanwhile, the 12 group was seriously injured. She feared that one day she would become a burden and put her teammates in danger. At the same time, Won Sung was still wandering in the forest, tirelessly searching for the demon's lair. After a hard day of sweating, Won Sung found the whereabouts of the evil cult and quietly followed them. They entered a tunnel, and in a split second, the whole group disappeared without a trace. Surely this place had a secret barrier that not everyone knew the way to. On this side, Taesan looked at the wall, depicting the zodiac symbols. His heart suddenly ached as he remembered old memories. At that time, Mir had softened and begged his big brother not to kill the demon, but because of hatred and responsibility to protect humanity, then Ho wanted him to personally destroy the demon. While he was lost in thought, Taesan suddenly heard Won Sung running back to report that Won Sung had found the hiding place of Sumin and the crows. At the same time, Won Sung suggested that the group should come up with a plan before it's too late. At the lair, the two villains celebrate finding 2 spirit stones. They believe that if they add the last stone along with the dragon soul in Mir's body, Hate's ultimate power will completely belong to Agui. Black Crow is worried because the tiger god is always by Mir's side to protect him, so capturing Mir is not an easy task. Saman reveals that the 12 have lost all their power since sealing the gates of hell. Moreover, Taesan, although cold, also has a fatal weakness. The next morning, Taesan and Mok secretly set out to find the devil. The two did not let their brothers know. Taesan was afraid that his teammates would get into danger, so he told Marak to follow closely behind. On this side, the evil cult group already knew the tiger god's weakness. They were preparing to attack the Gumsoon couple. With their faces covered and their eyes dark, they looked exactly like messengers of death. Immediately, the stone glowed, signaling that the demon was taking action. The members of 12 called, urging Taesan to quickly come to the street food stall. Meanwhile, Taesan was already very close to the dark barrier, but had to turn back to provide support. It turned out that everything was just the sinister plan of the cult group, meant to lure the angels into a trap. Pitiful was the old couple, exhausted from being tormented by them. The old man risked his life to rush in and rescue his wife, but was no match. With just a light flick of their hand, they made him collapse, motionless. Seeing that, the old woman Gum soon took the chance to run toward the train station. She went while crying out for help that there were demons, but no one paid attention to that strange behavior. Meanwhile, the cult group was chasing closely behind, determined not to let the prey escape. Gum soon used all her strength to try to flee. Luckily, she found a temporary hiding place in the restroom. Gum soon trembled as she prayed to heaven and Buddha. Just when she was about to take out her phone to call the police, the cult group had already stormed into the restroom. At that moment, she could only tremble in fear of being discovered. Meanwhile, outside, Taesan had arrived in time to save the old man. Knowing that Gum soon was at the train station, he immediately went to rescue. At the moment of imminent danger, Taesan arrived just in time. Taesan asked Maruk to take Gum soon away from the scene, while he stayed to fight the cult group. However, Maruk and the old woman were already surrounded everywhere. The cult group swarmed like ants. They did not allow the prey to escape. Luckily, the 12 appeared to clear a path for their comrades. Mansuk and Doni rushed forward to block the enemy, but were soon defeated. With the overwhelming number of enemies and their angelic powers sealed, they could hardly resist. One of them decided to stay behind to fight with Mansuk and Doni. Meanwhile, the others would continue to pursue Gumsoon's group. It turned out that it was all Saman's plot. He deliberately divided the 12 team to capture Mir. Samin led his subordinates to break the barrier and rushed in like a hungry tiger. At this time, only Mir and Dr. Bang Wool were left at home. They immediately fell into a defensive position. Bang Wool reflexively raised his bow and aimed straight at the villains. Now the 12 team was facing a fierce battle for survival. In that tense moment, Mir suddenly remembered a memory from more than 15 years ago. At that time, the 12 team had helped Gumsoon's mother and son's restaurant. Since the day the thugs were punished, they did not dare to harass the vendors in the market anymore. Gumsoon's mother was extremely grateful for the life-saving grace, and little Gumsoon at that time especially idolized Taesan. She had drawn a picture of the tiger god as a bright star in the night sky. Taesan was cold and quiet on the outside, but in fact he was very kind by nature. He had always secretly helped people. At that time, the members were discussing that it had been a long time since the boss had openly communicated with humanity. The last time was almost 100 years. At that time, Gumsoon asked everyone to know the name of the benefactor. At that time, the 12 group all said his name was Taesan. At this moment, Salmon ordered his subordinates to rush in to attack Mir and Bang Wool. Immediately, Bang Wool's poisoned arrow took down 2 of them. When Bang Wool was surrounded by the henchmen, Salmon secretly released a dark energy that knocked Bang Wool down. Mir, in anger, unleashed his power to blow away the henchmen in order to save his sibling. But standing before Salmon's dark power, Mir was subdued. The past came back. The members were loading belongings onto the car to move to the new base. Meanwhile, Tae-san, Won-sang, Doni and Ji-dol had flown to the Philippines to collect debts. But in fact, they went to investigate Salmon's group. On this side, the girls invited each other to go camping to relax after a tiring time. At the campsite, Mansuk enjoyed the aroma spreading from the food. After that, Mansuk went to taste the soup but choked. Seeing that, Kanji also tried the soup and choked as well. The soup even tasted bitter like caramel macchiato. It turned out that it was because Bang Wool had seasoned it. At that moment, she was still trying to sprinkle a whole bunch of strange spices into another dish. Just when the sisters were trying to stop Bang Wool from cooking, Mir suddenly appeared. Mir happily embraced his sisters, and then they played together around the campfire. But the true purpose of Mir was the magic potion. That was the potion Mir had asked Bang Wool to specially prepare for Doni in case of a dangerous event. Right at that moment, an illusion appeared in Mir's mind. Mir saw Tae-san lying collapsed on the ground, his power gradually fading away. Returning to the battle, Doni had taken out the special potion that Bang Wool had previously prepared. As soon as he drank it, Doni's body gradually transformed, making his whole body emit smoke and his skin flushed red. The angel's power was once again restored. Doni frenziedly attacked the demon. However, this demon was not an ordinary kind. He was able to fight on equal terms with Doni, making Doni's power gradually lose control. Just when Doni threw the demon away, the side effect of the potion suddenly took effect, causing Doni's body to be in pain. Masu quickly dealt with that demon, then supported Doni to leave this place. In another corner, Marok's group was struggling against the demon legion. They were those who had been granted demonic power. No matter how Marok's group attacked them, the demons did not feel any pain. The only power was Marok's magic staff, but he had used it to protect the old lady Gumsoon. Because of that, the remaining members were tortured by the demons. They tried to escape from the siege, but without the power of angels, they were not the opponents of the demons. Just when the subordinates were gradually losing hope, Tae-san appeared like a savior. Tae-san threw punches, knocking down each of them. Even though Tae-san no longer had the power of angels, Tae-san's fists trained through thousands of years were not simple. Tae-san alone dealt with all the demons, making none of them able to recover. At the same time, at a remote folklore museum forgotten by time, the demons had found what they needed. That was the last soul stone, disguised as an ordinary ancient stone. Ogui was walking when he suddenly felt terrible pain. He curiously stepped down to the basement. Standing before a magical prison, Ogui was surprised that Mir had been captured by Salmon. Returning to the mansion, everything around had been destroyed. These were the traces of the demons. Only Bang Wool remained lying motionless on the floor. Everyone quickly came to lift their younger sister up. At this moment, they realized Mir had been taken away. Tae-san angrily asked who was behind this, and knew it was Salmon. Tae-san furiously wanted to go rescue Mir immediately, but he was stopped by Moreau. Right now, they could not fight against the demons. They needed to have a more certain plan in order to be able to rescue Mir. After that, Moreau calmed Tae-san, saying that he would definitely find a way to rescue Mir. Hearing that, Tae-san then went to Gumsoon's room to check the situation. At this moment, Gumsoon was dying. The wound caused by the demonic energy had made the old lady suffer. Her skin had turned dark black along with faint breaths. Bang Wool had used all the rarest herbs, but all were useless. While everyone was at a dead end, Won-sung thought of a way. That was to open the gate of hell. When the gate of hell was opened, the sealed divine power would also return, but Marok refused. If the gate was opened, then the human world would be in danger once again. Everyone immediately fell into contemplation, because every hasty decision must pay a heavy price. To maintain life and limit the spread of the poison, Bang Wool tried to inject medicine for the old lady, but the situation was not good. Marok, deep in thought, drove away, unintentionally seen by Won-sung. At this moment, only Won-sung knew the lair of the demons. Everyone wanted Won-sung to tell the location, but Won-sung obeyed Marok, so he did not speak. An argument broke out. They realized Marok was going to the enemy's lair. Won-sung immediately went in to report this news to the big brother. Tae-san understood what his brother wanted to do, so Tae-san together with Won-sung immediately drove away, leaving the subordinates bewildered. At the same time, in the enemy's lair, Mir had awakened. Standing before Mir was Salmon. He used demonic energy to make her unconscious once again. In the damp lair, the final ritual had begun. Mir was tightly bound on a stone altar carved full of ancient characters. Ogui slowly stepped forward before Mir. Salmon saw the hesitation flashing in Ogui's eyes, so Salmon placed the magic stone onto the altar. The demon wings spread wide. Ogui's power caused the three stones to merge into one. A disgusting stream of energy gradually devoured everything. Salmon raised both hands high, his mouth muttering terrifying incantations. A brilliant stream of light was was slowly drawn out of Mir's body. That was the dragon soul. It condensed into a sphere of pure light floating in the air. Ogui stood there, ready to swallow it to complete the process of reviving the power of Haite. Meanwhile, outside the tunnel, Marok had found the secret door. Marok used the power from the magic staff. A stream of blue light swept around. Marok tried to remove the seal. The wall gradually appeared with cracks, but Marok's current power was not enough. Blood began to flow, making Marok kneel in pain. When Ogui was about to absorb the power of the divine dragon, a forgotten memory suddenly came back. It was a happy moment between Ogui and Mir. Ogui painfully held his head and then collapsed. Salmon became angry when he saw the energy stone fall to the ground. All of Salmon's efforts seemed to be ruined. Right at that moment, the stone wall of the barrier shattered into pieces. Marok rushed in and shouted loudly, calling Mir's name. Salmon went mad. He tried to use the power of the magic stone. Demonic energy surrounded Salmon's body, but then all of it vanished. In a rage, Salmon rushed to slash Marok once, but Marok was not affected at all. Another demon intended to snatch the magic staff, but Marok's power was enough to turn it into dust. Marok threatened the remaining demons. They immediately surrounded him. Marok calmly spun his staff, knocking each one down. The terrifying power of Marok easily crushed the demons. After that, Marok created 5 clones of himself. While introducing the power of the staff, Marok smiled and attacked. Salmon still stood still, observing without showing any fear. Meanwhile, Marok's clones, one after another, defeated each demon. Suddenly, Salmon discovered a fatal weakness. A jet of pitch-black demonic energy shot out as fast as lightning. Marok could not dodge, so he was pierced through. Marok painfully collapsed to the ground. Even though he was seriously injured, Marok still interrogated Salmon about his real plan. Marok wanted to know whether he was plotting to open the gate of hell once again or not. At that moment, Ogui woke up. Ogui remembered the battles of the past. At that time, Ogui was seriously injured and Mir had tried every way to save Ogui. Mir's tears at that time were still imprinted in Ogui's memory. Right then, Taesan appeared with the power of the tiger god. Taesan angrily prepared to deal with Ogui. However, Mir stood blocking in front. She used the dragon's power to push Taesan back, but Taesan was not shaken. He immediately counterattacked, making Mir crash hard into the cliff wall. Taesan stepped forward. He affirmed that this was the end meant for Ogui. When Taesan was about to throw his punch, Marok appeared in time to stop him. Marok said that this was the will of God. Marok affirmed he would erase all memories of Mir and Ogui. At the same time, ordered Taesan to take Mir away first. The rest let Marok handle it. Right after that, Ogui screamed in despair when Mir was taken away. Marok stood in front of Ogui. He coldly declared that Ogui would have to experience the feeling of being buried forever. A circle of blue power appeared. Chains tightened, sealing Ogui in hell forever. Returning to the past, Mir and Kanji at this time were striving to pursue the evil spirit energies. Even though the two had seen it, they still let the evil spirit escape. The trace was lost, but the feeling of the evil presence still lingered. Kanji softly whispered that it was surely still around here. Then she decided to split up to expand the search range. A moment later, Kanji suddenly appeared from behind an ancient tree trunk, making Mir startled. The chase had failed. However, Mir did not show any disappointment. On the contrary, in Mir's eyes appeared a profound anxiety. Mir noticed a disturbing change. The evil spirits, who had only dared to rampage in the darkness, now appeared regardless of day or night in increasing numbers. Kanji tried to brush off that concern, but she suddenly realized Mir had no intention of returning with her. When Mir suggested Kanji go ahead, Mir's resolute gaze revealed the truth. Ch immediately understood. She showed her disappointment when Mir was still seeing that person. After that, Kanji repeated the group's warning about the danger if Mir broke the rule. This was no longer just Mir's matter. Kanji painted a terrifying scenario if Taesan and Marok discovered the truth, while also stressing the price Ogui would have to pay. As soon as she finished speaking, Kanji turned away, leaving Mir alone with the painful choice between love and destiny. Back to the present, Ogui had gradually regained consciousness. Ogui woke up, looked at Mir one last time, then turned his eyes toward Salmon. Ogui's demonic wings spread wide, flying straight toward the traitor. Ogui grew furious when he realized Salmon had dared to take his soul stone. Right after that, Ogui saw Marok, the one who had once sealed him, lying on the ground, barely breathing. Ogui asked himself whether he should kill first. Marok tried to reach for the magic staff, but was immediately thrown away by Ogui. Taking that chance, Salmon rushed forward with a knife to attack Ogui. Yet Ogui easily dodged. Ogui's wings, hard as steel, resembled a solid defensive shield that rendered all of Salmon's attacks useless. With just a single swing of his wings, Ogui had completely overwhelmed his opponent. After that, Ogui soared into the sky to evade the strike and used the power of his wings to suppress the enemy. When Salmon collapsed on the ground, Ogui delivered the finishing blow, ending the 1,000-year life of the priest. After dealing with Saman, Ogui immediately looked toward Mura, the one who was trying to crawl toward the ancient stone altar. Ogui blocked Mura and then gripped his neck tightly. Ogui coldly asked about his feeling when his body could no longer move. After that, Ogui questioned why Marak had once sealed him. Marak replied that it was all due to the will of God. In the moment Ogui lost his guard, Saman suddenly used the last bit of power left in the stone to attack Ogui. Darkness immediately covered the entire room. Right after that, Ogui flapped his wings and flew away together with Mir. At this moment Saman had managed to regain part of his strength. Saman created a new army in order to chase those who had just escaped. On the cold floor, only Marak remained, dying. Marak tried to take the communicator to call Tae-san. Marak's familiar voice came through the line, but weak and broken, mixed with painful, gasping breaths. Each word of Marak was like hammer blows striking directly at Tae-san's heart. Marak revealed that Saman had absorbed the power of Hei-Tai, thereby giving him the ability to manipulate humans. Ogui had taken Mir away, aiming at the dragon soul hidden deep inside her. If Saman obtained that power, he would become invincible. In the end, Marak gave one last order, which was that Tae-san must open the gate of hell. Marak's breath grew weaker and weaker. His final words were about an unpaid debt and a belated apology to the whole team. Right after that, the signal faded out. In helplessness, Tae-san screamed out Marak's name with tears streaming down. Immediately after, Tae-san ordered Won-sung to drive faster because Marak's life was in danger. When they arrived, a devastated scene appeared before their eyes. Amidst the ruins, Tae-san saw Marak's motionless body. Tae-san collapsed to his knees, holding the fallen comrade, the elder brother who had fallen. Tae-san's scream was no longer the scream of a god, but of a man who had lost a loved one. They brought Marok's body back to the base. Everyone was heartbroken at losing an elder brother, one who had spent his whole life protecting the younger ones. The staff together with Marok's body gradually vanished into nothingness. Everyone's eyes followed the stream of blue light flying far away and then disappearing completely. A memory suddenly surged into Tae-san's mind. Tae-san stood before a stone, grave of a human. A solemn voice resounded, reminding about the uniqueness of mankind, about the mission of the angels sent down to protect humanity, and about the sacrifice of other members. It was like an inevitable part of the noble destiny. In the present, Tae-san whispered that it was a truly miserable destiny. Bitterness and fury were deeply imprinted in Tae-san's eyes. Returning to reality, Tae-san stood before the gate of hell, a massive ancient barrier. The eyes of his juniors followed every action of Tae-san. All of them understood that the time had come to open the gate. Despite Won-sung's dissuasion, Tae-san remained resolute. Tae-san's grief had turned into a raging flame. Tae-san struck down with blows of terrifying power. The sky turned into a storm. Thunder crashed down. Cracks gradually appeared on the barrier. A stream of blue light enveloped everything. With a sky-shaking roar, Tae-san gathered all his strength into a single strike. The gate shattered. Sealed power of the angels had now returned. Tae-san turned to his juniors and affirmed that now the gate of hell had been broken. The time limit was only one day. They must find Mir, eliminate Saman and Ogui, and then return to close the gate. At the same time, in another place, a stream of black smoke carrying death and chaos surged forth like a flood. They swallowed all the surrounding light. The world began to change. The sky turned pitch black like ink. Even though it was daytime, a strange black dust like ashes from a volcano was falling down. The news on television continuously broadcast warnings, while on the streets chaos erupted. The honking of angry cars quickly turned into violence. Then the most horrifying thing happened. Sensing the familiar power, Samin used magic to release all the souls. The eyes of ordinary people suddenly turned black. They screamed and rushed to attack each other like wild beasts. The city suddenly turned into a living hell. Meanwhile, Gumsoon's pain grew worse and worse. That pain corroded throughout her body. Bang Wool stood worriedly watching, but after regaining their angelic power, they were able to purify this demonic poison. At the same time, in a remote mountain region, Ogui had taken Mir and escaped. Both fainted in a large cave where demons could not find them. Meanwhile, Tae-san and his subordinates began to act. The scene now was no different from thousands of years ago, when the world was engulfed by the fire of hell. In that deadly atmosphere, Tae-san's group bravely fought against the demons. The angelic power helped them easily defeat that massive army. From the sky, bolts of lightning continuously struck down, illuminating the battle between Tae-san and Hei-Tai, the one whom Tae-san once regarded as his own brother, but who had now been corrupted by power. Just as Tae-san was about to strike, memories, once again, surged back. In the end, Tae-san chose to turn his back and walk away. Tae-san stopped Marak and said that it was enough, but Marak affirmed that Hei-Tai had turned into a demon and needed to be killed. At that moment, Marak faced Hei-Tai, who had been corrupted into an evil spirit. A voice resounded, affirming that it was the will of God and that Hei-Tai must must be destroyed. Marak used the power of the staff. He created a barrier that enclosed Haitay. Haitay began to scream violently. In a moment of hesitation, Marak weakened the spell. At that very moment, Haitay burst out with power, breaking the chains and then attacking Marak. Not stopping there, Haitay also used his power to kill his 4 seniors. The resentment made Tayson furious. That was the source of the tragedy, the last straw. Tayson rushed in and delivered a fatal punch to defeat Haitay. Power of Haitay also gradually faded from the world. After defeating the demon, everyone together used their power to close the gate of hell. On the other side, in his unconsciousness, Ogui recalled the old memories with Mir. Those were the happiest moments of the two. However, that love was only temporary because their identities were inherently different. Mir was the one who held angelic power, while Ogui was just an ordinary human with the ability to detect the spiritual energy of demons. Mir seemed to read Ogui's thoughts. Mir said that the gift God had given to Ogui was extremely special. If the evil spirits could break through the magical barrier, Ogui was the only one who could sense and find the soul stones. However, Ogui's confidence began to waver. Ogui confessed that recently he could no longer sense spiritual energy. Even the necklace, an ancient artifact capable of sensing dark energy, no longer reacted. Mir held Ogui's hand, transmitting to him warmth and steadiness. Mir promised that she would protect Ogui no matter what happened. However, those words only made Ogui's heart even more determined. Ogui looked straight at Mir and began to pray. Ogui recalled the story of Marak, a human who had sincerely prayed for many years to be granted the power to eliminate demons and finally became an angel. Ogui confessed that he also wanted to have that power so that he could live among the angels and they would never have to be separated again. Mir's face immediately stiffened. Her voice became stern and cold. She said that Ogui must not do that, not even think about it. Mir did not want Ogui to change because of her, nor did she want him to step into a dangerous path. Mir affirmed that she loved Ogui as he was in the present. After that, Mir suggested that they should make their relationship public, but Ogui brushed it aside. Ogui knew very well that the angels would never accept it. An argument broke out. The repression in their hearts burst out into words. Mir shouted with a voice mixed with anger and pain. She said that Ogui could not fully understand the danger of fighting evil spirits. On the contrary, for Ogui, having to hide like this was also full of risks. Ogui revealed that Kangji already knew about their relationship. That harsh truth hovered between the two of them. Mir looked deeply into Ogui's eyes, her voice earnest. She affirmed that even if God ignored their prayers, and even if the other angels did not accept, their feelings would still not change. At the same time, in a faraway place covered in darkness, a powerful being gave orders to his subordinates. The black moon was about to rise, and the gate of hell would open right after that. The order was given coldly. The news must be spread, and the angels must be divided. As soon as the subordinates left, the god of darkness appeared. A wave of evil energy immediately invaded Saman's body. Saman once again began to search for his next prey. In a barren land, Ogui knelt with his hands clasped. He repeated his prayer over and over. While Ogui was yearning to have power like Marak, suddenly a figure slowly emerged from the darkness. It was the presence he had sensed for many days. The stranger spoke and asked if Ogui was the one who had been lurking around him all this time. He began to use words to manipulate his mind. He said that he had been observing Ogui because he believed Ogui was different from ordinary humans. He mocked Ogui's prayers, considering them foolish and stubborn. According to him, God would never entrust supreme power to a mere human. After that, he moved closer and planted in Ogui's mind another path. He said that if Ogui wanted to be with Mir, then there was only one way: to abandon his fragile human form and take on a power greater than the angels. He emphasized that instead of following the orders of the angels, Ogui could make them obey his commands. The stranger reached out his hand, giving a tempting offer. He even asked Ogui if he wanted his help or not. Without waiting for an answer, he directly dropped his blood onto Ogui. Immediately, the dark power began to invade Ogui's heart, causing his body to writhe in pain on the ground. Ogui gradually transformed into a demon. After Ogui possessed his new power, Saman appeared and came to find Ogui. Saman wanted Ogui to join forces to open the gate of hell and at the same time destroy the angels. However, Ogui only smirked with disdain. Ogui coldly said that he had no reason to follow Saman's words. Ogui walked straight up to Saman, his eyes full of contempt. Ogui declared that Saman was nothing but a useless high priest, one who only knew how to use a few petty spells. Ogui warned him not to be arrogant and to know how to obey his command. Ogui affirmed that Saman's only mission was to take orders from Ogui and hold on to his pitiful life. At those words, Samin could only bow his head and tremble. Shortly after, Kangji faced Ogui. Kangji roared, asking why he had betrayed them, his voice filled with pain and doubt. Ogui indifferently replied that he was sick of everything. He felt tired of being trapped inside the fence spirits that God had built. When Kamji mentioned Mir, a faint emotion appeared on Ogwi's face, but it was quickly covered by coldness. Kamji still tried to persuade Ogwi that it was not too late to beg for forgiveness. However, Ogwi raised his hand, creating a dense dark energy that was gradually gathering. Ogwi said that this would be the last time he spared her life. When Mir knew of the matter, she hurriedly ran to the meeting place, but Ogwi was no longer there. Before the emptiness, Mir collapsed and burst into sobs. Returning to the present, after escaping from Saman's lair, Ogwi saw the power of the holy dragon return to Mir. She slowly awakened and faced the one she loved the most. Their eyes met. Ogwi said that his memories had been restored. Mir replied that she would call Tessan. However, just as Mir turned her back to leave, Ogwi spoke up, asking whether he would continue to be imprisoned. Mir painfully asked back why he had betrayed everyone. However, the sudden pain struck, preventing Ogwi from explaining. Ogwi only collapsed, watching Mir's figure fade away. Returning to the present, the city was now shrouded in darkness. The people, controlled by evil spirits, became insane. Faced with that situation, Taesan's team also began to act. Looking at the demons rampaging, Taesan ordered everyone to use the vehicles. Taesan reminded them that after regaining their power, the angels no longer feared the evil spirits. Moreover, they even had the ability to purify them. The order was given firmly: no killing of any humans. Immediately after that, Taesan stormed into a club. The underlings inside panicked when they saw Taesan appear. Inside, the evil spirits had already infiltrated. Taesan braced his whole body. He threw a punch that blew away the first evil spirit. Going deeper, Taesan discovered that the evil spirits continued to take over. The leader inside the club fearfully begged Taesan for help. Against the enemy, Taesan showed no mercy. Each punch of Taesan unleashed his full strength. After clearing out the evil spirits, Taesan immediately left the place. At the same time, Saman had arrived at Mir. Saman released a surge of evil energy that injured her. However, Mir did not show any fear. With her restored power, with just one move she blew away the evil spirits. Immediately Saman charged straight in. The black evil energy grew denser. Then Saman unleashed a terrifying power that blew Mir away. After capturing Mir, Saman immediately retreated. Meanwhile, Taesan and his teammates continued to track Ogwi. At that moment, Ogwi suddenly appeared to block the vehicle. Everyone grew furious when they saw the traitor standing before them, but Taesan stopped them. Taesan only asked Ogwi where Mir was. Ogwi painfully admitted that Saman had taken her away. Ogwi asked Taesan to buy time so that he could recover, and promised that when the time came, everything would end. As for Saman, he had brought Mir to the base of the angels. There, Saman used his power to destroy the door leading into the secret chamber. Saman placed Mir on an ancient stone altar. Then he released a surge of dark energy to absorb the power of the holy dragon. Saman began to absorb that pure power. An overwhelming feeling of ecstasy spread through his entire body. Saman reveled in the euphoria. Then he immediately proceeded to break the seal within the ancient statues. Meanwhile, Taesan's group had just returned. Facing them at this moment were the evil spirits. From above, Ogwi still observed everything. He needed more time to recover. When everyone was preparing to attack, Taesan suddenly realized something unusual. Taesan pulled his men back. He warned that the enemy now was not only demons, but also the comrades who had once fought side by side. Their bodies had been taken over by Saman. Immediately, Taesan ordered his teammates to summon their weapons. Taesan assigned them to deal with the evil spirits, while he himself would go after Saman. A fierce battle broke out. Taesan alone charged in, knocking down each evil spirit in front of him. In another direction, Wonsung, with the power of the monkey, had summoned two staff. Wonsung fought while mocking, causing the evil spirits to be struck down one by one and fall straight into hell. As for Kamji, she was forced to face her own comrades, the ones who also possessed the power of the 12 zodiac animals. They could not bring themselves to strike their loved ones, so the battle became even more painful and difficult. Meanwhile, Taesan alone rushed straight into the sacred chamber. Flames surrounded his body. Each punch was a destructive strike that made each obstacle fall one after another. Finally, Taesan directly confronted Saman. Saman immediately summoned the evil spirits to surround Taesan. From the dawn of time, when the wild winds still howled across the land, the god of light awakened 12 creatures and granted them a destiny. The 12 angels carried within them the power of the spirit beasts. They were born to protect and guide mankind. Yet darkness had always been wary and envious of the angels' power. They used minions to unleash an evil energy that spread across the world. As the light gradually faded and the earth decayed, black dust crept into human bodies, turning them into bloodthirsty evil spirits. Facing the annihilation of humanity, the angels chose to rise up and fight. Day after day, they destroyed evil spirits, persisting in an endless war without resolution. While the angels had to strain themselves to withstand the endless waves of attacks, the power of darkness, through Ogwi and Saman, corrupted Haitai, who was originally the sacred beast of the 12 angels. Haitai was turned into a powerful evil spirit and became a weapon to attack the very ones it once protected. Hanu, Master Rabbit, Young Mi, and Doggy fell one after another before that terrifying power. In fury and despair, Taesan delivered the decisive blow that ended Haitai's life. Immediately after, the evil energy along with the power of the angels was sealed deep beneath the gate of hell. Many long years passed. Summon, who was thought to have been destroyed, suddenly reappeared in human form. A new destined battle began once more. Outside, the survivors were being surrounded by evil spirits, while Ogui still remained motionless, silently observing everything. Inside Taesan's Oriental Medicine Clinic, the silence was torn apart by a world-shaking confrontation. Samin stood there with an arrogant smile on his lips. Samin made a tempting offer. If Taesan agreed to join him, then Taesan would gain even greater power, and no one could possibly stop him. Taesan did not reply. Taesan charged straight ahead, his body erupting with a surge of furious energy. Taesan's punch carried the weight of loss and hatred, blowing the evil spirits away. However, Samin was not afraid at all. Samin continued to summon more evil spirits. They struck Taesan with a fatal blow, causing him to gradually weaken. Taesan tried to stand firm. He unleashed consecutive punches to shatter the monsters. But at that very moment, Samin secretly stabbed Taesan once more. In agony, Taesan still forced himself to rise. He gathered all his strength and unleashed a fiery punch that burned the enemy to ashes. Taking advantage of the moment when Taesan was exhausted, Samin fired a burst of dark energy straight at Taesan. Taesan's body was blown far away. The spirit beast flame in Taesan was gradually extinguished. Outside, the battle was also extremely brutal and tragic. Doni, Jidol, and Kangji were fighting together with the remaining people against their fallen comrades. Hanu, Yang Mi, and Master Rabbit were now nothing more than soulless puppets under Samin's control. They attacked everyone without the slightest hesitation. Each strike, each block felt like a knife slicing deep into the heart. Taesan's team could only weakly defend, everyone trying to hold back their former comrades without wanting to hurt them further. However, Kangji and the others understood that if they continued to show mercy, the next ones to fall would be themselves. In the end, the remaining members resolved that they must free those who had been manipulated. There was no longer any place for hesitation or restraint. Each member began to unleash their primal power. They gradually gained the upper hand as the enemies slowly decreased. As for Taesan, at that moment he was already lying collapsed on the ground. A dark aura suddenly appeared in the middle of the battlefield. It was Ogui. Ogui suddenly flew in and kicked Samin into the wall. The two immediately lunged at each other like starving demons, sparks flying as their swords clashed violently. Samin turned back, momentarily surprised, but then quickly regained his confidence. For now, Samin possessed the power of Haitei and the dragon soul within him. At this moment, Ogui was no match for Samin. Immediately, Samin swung his hand and created a dark force that knocked Ogui down. This power gradually drained Ogui's strength. Seeing this, Samin was extremely pleased. He then gathered his power to destroy Mir. Just as Samin launched his strike, Taesan rushed out in time to shield Mir. Seeing this, Samin could not help but sneer, for Mir was now nothing more than an empty shell after losing her soul. Immediately after, Samin intended to finish off Taesan, but at that very moment, Ogui blocked the fatal strike for Taesan. Not stopping there, the cruel Samin broke Ogui's wings, causing him unbearable pain. Meanwhile, Mir could only helplessly watch her lover being tormented without being able to move. Ogui's death made Taesan erupt in fury. The sacred flame returned to its master. Taesan charged forward, unleashing a fierce punch that sent Samin flying. The weakened enemy resisted, but could not withstand the explosive power of Taesan. Blazing flame burned the demon's soul, making him writhe in agony. Taesan continued to slam Samin down to the ground. In ultimate terror, Samin was horrified when he saw Taesan's flame turn blue, a sign that the power had surpassed its limit. Taesan flew in, delivering the decisive punch to defeat Samin. Samin screamed miserably before being completely consumed by the hellfire. When the light faded away, Samin also vanished. The dragon energy returned to Mir's body. Mir painfully sat up, dragging herself step by step toward Ogui. Mir's heart wrenched when she could no longer feel Ogui's warmth. Tears rolled down her cheeks. Mir collapsed, recalling the happy memories of the two of them. At that moment, everyone began to gather in front of the gate of hell. A blue energy burst forth, all of them using their own angelic power to seal the gate once again. The miraculous light gradually spread across the city. The humans who had been turned into evil spirits suddenly returned to their normal form. They stared blankly, not understanding what had just happened. At Taesan's building, the angels who had previously sacrificed themselves were also revived. Master Rabbit woke up, rubbing his head and grumbling because his whole body ached from being beaten earlier. Yang Mi and Doggy also opened their eyes, bewilderedly looking around with unfamiliar faces. Monsuk immediately rushed over. She hugged Yeongmi tightly and burst into tears. Doni and Ji-dal were overjoyed when they saw Hanu return. They joked and teased each other as if there had never been a separation. The reunion burst out in joy and tears. They laughed and embraced like a family finally made whole. But amidst that joy, Taesan stood alone, quietly smiling. It had been a long time since they had felt such happiness. Time gradually passed, and life returned to normal. On the news, people mentioned an anonymous philanthropist with the nickname Tiger, who had donated a huge amount of money to an orphanage. Hearing the news, Taesan could not help but feel delighted. The peaceful days began. Everyone gradually became familiar again with the new world, a place where no demons roamed. That evening, when everyone gathered at a small roadside eatery, they raised their glasses to celebrate and ate joyfully. The simple human dishes like spicy rice cakes or fried food suddenly became unusually delicious. The cozy atmosphere was filled with laughter. At that moment, Granny Jum soon stood up to welcome her grandchild, and right after that she wanted Taesan to try holding her baby. When Taesan held the child, he could not help but laugh and praise the baby for looking exactly like Granny Jum soon. At that moment, all of them were like a real family. It seemed as if life would remain peaceful like that forever. But in fact, Mir still could not stop missing Ogwi, so Mir searched for the place where he had once been sealed. But as soon as Mir arrived there, a strange figure made her terrified the moment she saw it. On the other side, Taesan also sensed that something was wrong. Taesan's face became serious, his fists clenched tightly. Meanwhile, at the base, everything at that moment had turned desolate and ruined. The energy stones suddenly glowed. At the same time, Ogwi's heart suddenly beat again, signaling that the evil power had not yet abandoned its ambition. The film ends here. Thank you for watching. Goodbye and see you again.